Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday. Also, welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's Cris Carter. That's Nick Wright.
Good morning. That's my favorite dress of yours, Jenna Wolfe.
Thank you. That's very nice of you. And I was about to gloat, and now I'm going to take it back and say I really appreciate it. Things are good. I'm glad we're best friends.
Our wonderful stylist, Christine, is back after a little bit of a sabbatical, working on some other projects. So it's wonderful to have Christine back. You both look fabulous.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
Appreciate
Good morning,
that.
America.
I see what's happening.
What?
We're going to get right into other things like fashion, so we don't have to talk about...
I figure we're talking about the game this moment.
Yeah.
You want to start right now?
Either that, I can talk about your dress being sexy, or whatever.
No, I didn't even bring up the
colors.
dress.
No,
but thank you very much, and welcome back, Christine. We really
Yes.
appreciate having you back. Now let us get to what I was
People like it. I got a
originally going
couple
to say.
Texas people like that color on you.
Thank you. I love Texas. We start big this morning, the way LeBron did last night in Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Big. How big? 21 points in the first quarter, en route to a 42-point triple-double for LeBron James. But the Celtics at home are unbeatable, outscoring Cleveland in the second half 59-39. LeBron, unlike what he was able to do against the Pacers, could not do this alone. And last night, he was basically alone. Celtics win Game 2, 107-94. They're up now 2-0 in this series. Here's LeBron James after the game.
How will I digest it? I'm going to go home tonight and see my 3 kids, see my family, recalibrate, see my mom. I think I'll be fine. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. You know, you go out and when you lay everything on the line, you know, at the end of the day, you can live with that.
So there's a lot of different angles we could take this from. Let's start first with the Cavs. I think this surprised a lot of people. CC, I'll start with you. What happened to Cleveland in Game 2 in their loss last night to Boston?
They ran into a better team. And that's what you could see in the second half of the game. They were able, and I had concerns with Cleveland coming into the game, but about 3/4 of the way through that first quarter, when LeBron was doing LeBron type of things, and the Celtics were still within 2 or 3 possessions of the game, LeBron was playing incredible. And I was thinking, man, if they don't get a bigger lead when he's on fire like that, then it was going to be a problem. Ultimately, it was a problem. And you could see that the Celtics defense, they made adjustments at halftime, and you could see those adjustments, what they made, as far as shutting Cleveland down, shutting down the other players. And, you know, we can get into a back and forth. LeBron, was he injured after that? Did he change his overall aggression? You know, I listened to him in the press conference. He said it didn't change him. He said he went in the locker room, calibrated, said he got checked for a few things, got checked for a concussion, but this is about, we can make a lot of excuses, but it's about basketball, and this is a good basketball team, and the Cavs have been inconsistent, and we could see that. We've seen it in game number 1, and we definitely saw it in game number 2.
And listen, part of LeBron's greatness has always been, if he gets, David Griffin talked about in a podcast this past week that he saw in a conference finals game, LeBron's bone in his ankle touched the ground. He goes to the back room. David Griffin goes and asks the trainer, is LeBron going to be okay? And the trainer said, does he have any other choice? Part of his greatness has always been coming through these things, so there's no excuse that he took the unintentional shoulder to the head from Tatum. He came back in. He was very good after that. What you were worried about happening in yesterday's game is exactly what happened. Jenna, you asked me, you said, give me a line for LeBron. I've been on a pretty decent run of predicting these. I said 38, 9, and 12.
Yep.
He finished 42, 10, and 12. And they ended up getting blown out.
I think you said he had to at least get 50 as far as contribution.
Combined points and assists, and at least 60 total points and assists, points created via scoring and assists. It's what he got.
He had 69 of them last night.
It's what he got. And the team's effort was pathetic. It was, if they were just missing shots like game 1, CC, I feel differently.
It's easier. It's easier because you can point to it. Listen, the ball wasn't going in. It's a make or miss league. But it wasn't that.
It's not like the ball wasn't going in for Cavs other than LeBron, but that's not my issue. My issue is they weren't down by 25 in the fourth quarter. They at one point had cut it to 6. Most of the fourth quarter, it was between 4 and 9. And the Cavs' lack of trying on defense, when you know this is the second biggest game you've played all year, the only game bigger, Game 7 against the Pacers, because that was a game that literally could end your season. Jenna, you asked me, I don't know, 70 times this year, are you worried? Are you concerned about the Cavs and their ability to make the NBA Finals? I sit here this morning for the first time all year legitimately concerned because they didn't show the want to from any player other than LeBron, the one guy who has the least to prove, the least to show, and you could argue the most to gain from the team losing because it's not another finals loss for him.
No, absolutely. LeBron, and I got to say, the move that Ty Lue made as far as putting Tristan into the lineup, you could see the improvement there. Kevin Love, he played a good game for Kevin Love. He gave him the type of support. If he gets those numbers, they're typically going to win, regardless of what LeBron does. If Kevin Love plays that way with LeBron, LeBron will do enough to get him through. But the thing that we just can't hide, and it seems like they were hiding game number 1, hiding game number 2, is the overall backcourt. George Hill and J.R. Smith. I mean, they've been awful.
Nothing.
When you're talking about getting dominated by field goals, dominated by three-pointers. Like, if you think that the backcourt of the Celtics are going to be able to outshoot the backcourt of the Cavs coming into the series, you'd be like, man, the Cavs have no chance to win. If that's the case, it's totally lopsided.
41-3 last night is what that graphic showed.
I mean, it's awful. A lot of times, like my good friend Tom Jackson told me, you put up a graphic, I believe America can read.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's easy to see that the tide in this game, we can talk about LeBron, we can talk about Horford, we can talk about Jalen, but it's the backcourt. And what they did and how much better they have been, especially in last night's game.
All Cleveland had to do was look across the way. Boston didn't do anything spectacular, but they were balanced, right? They had a very balanced attack from the beginning of the game. Even when they were trailing, even when LeBron was going off for 21 points in the first quarter, they stayed in the game. They did not let LeBron get the best of them the way Toronto did. LeBron never got in their head the way it happened in Toronto. But what's the one thing you said you were worried about? No supporting cast. 3 players on the Cavs team scored in double figures. 6 players for Boston. They did it methodically, and they were balanced.
Listen, George Hill's never played in an NBA Finals. This is the best chance he'll ever have to go to an NBA Finals. Someone should let him know. J.R. Smith has been, for the better part of his NBA career, and you know I like J.R. personally, but let's be honest. J.R. Smith, the better part of his NBA career, has been something of a punchline, something that he did to himself to make himself a punchline. When LeBron leaves this offseason, J.R.'s never going to be on another championship or even close championship caliber team. Someone should let him know that. Like, you put it up there. The starting backcourt played 60 minutes last night. 60 combined minutes. J.R. Smith, I do believe, Dusty, you can fact check this, but I'm just going on my gut that this is true. J.R. Smith became the first player in playoff history to have more flagrant fouls than points. That's what he did last night. Like, it was an outrageous performance, and the effort, man. The lack of getting to loose balls. For the Celtics to play like they were the desperate team was embarrassing for Cleveland.
Yeah, it really was, given what was at stake. Because if you didn't have the volume on the game, and you didn't have all the graphics at the bottom, and you didn't know it was the Eastern Conference Final, like, you would have thought these.
Game.
Absolutely. This is what I saw during the regular season.
And the Cavs are on a back-to-back after traveling from Miami the night before.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, they went to a party or something. Like, this looked like a regular season game in 2 different cities for everyone but the front court, that being Kevin Love, Tristan, and LeBron.
And you saw it with the eye rolling and the frustration, and you saw their faces on the bench. But now Boston goes on the road. Boston hasn't been great on the road. The Cavs are going to be home. So are we writing the Cavs off? Do they have a chance to get back in this?
Listen, maybe I'll regret this. I said I was concerned. I'm not saying the Celtics have won this series. I watched the Celtics play 2 great home games against a team very similar, hot and cold to the Cavs this year in Milwaukee, and then go to Milwaukee, lose those 2, and that series went 7 games. But now the Cavs got to win 4 out of 5. Now the Cavs have to win 1 game on the road, which they did going into the series, obviously. But now it's going to have to be either Game 5 or Game 7 if they get there. And they no longer have, and this is what I'm curious real quick, your thoughts on this. I had the confidence, and I felt they had the confidence, that if LeBron's great, we'll be okay. Well, LeBron had a 40-point triple-double last night and 21 points in the first quarter, and they lost going away. I wonder what that does to the other guys on the team who feel, wait, so LeBron can't single-handedly beat this team the way he was able to against the Pacers, the way he's been able to in the past for us.
Yeah, it's the Cavs' goal They got to get this back to 2-2, some type of way. Now, I believe going into the series, the Celtics are going to win this series. But I don't sit here today and think the series is over. You know, LeBron James at home, they can easily have this 2-2. And then what's going to happen? See, I don't believe the home court advantage. I do believe the home court advantage and the role players of the Celtics will be the big difference in this.
All right, well, the Cavs have until Saturday now to figure out how to get back into this series. They trail 0-2 to the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. Coming up, let's talk some football. Lane Johnson, friend of the show, he's got more to say about what's going on in New England. Wait till you hear this next on First Things First.
At Buffalo Wild Wings, we'll admit that we often go overboard with our limited time offerings. We just can't help ourselves. Take our new signature sampler. For $15, you get wings and 3 shareable options, like fried pickles or cheese curds. Then there's our aptly named over-the-top nachos, a literal mountain of crispy tortilla chips loaded with your choice of pulled pork or honey barbecue chicken, corn, jalapenos, and more. Then top it all off with our new platinum margarita. Go overboard with us today at Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Available for a limited time while supplies last. Please drink responsibly.
Sometimes the grass isn't always greener over there. Sometimes the grass is actually better right here. Just ask Eagles' outspoken and spirited lineman Lane Johnson. He's tired of people assuming the strict Patriot way is better than the looser Eagles way. Lane stopped by our show last week to chat about life as the defending Super Bowl champs. He called the Patriots, quote, a fear-based organization. Yesterday, he doubled down on those comments. Take a listen.
Here's what pissed me off is, the Patriots, obviously, I respect their coach. I respect Bill. I respect Tom Brady. But just because the way they won the Super Bowls, the Patriot way, is that how everybody else is supposed to do the same thing? No, it's not. And that's what I got mad at the arrogance by them. There's obviously some stuff behind closed doors. Their owner talked to our owner. Bill talked to our head coach for the game. I'm not going to say it, but, a lot of kind of built up to that. And I just got tired of hearing about it, man. To be honest,
There are a lot of beeps in that. He sounds angry. He sounds a little bit frustrated. He had a lot to say about it.
Lane. Listen, Lane's fiery guy. Lane's fired up. And I couldn't believe. I don't want to say I couldn't believe. I was taken aback by the owner talked trash to our owner. The coach talked trash to our coach. It
was obviously something he heard. He specifically said, Bill said something to Doug. I mean, he obviously knew that there was something said before the game started.
I would just say the reputation of the Patriots around the league, not a lot of people in love with the Patriots. But I don't mind that. They don't like the way they do business. There is a certain amount of arrogance with teams who are successful. There's a certain amount of arrogance and confidence that the Patriots have. I believe there's a proper mixture of both, because everything that they've won in the NFL, they've earned it. Like, they've earned it. Like, he's coached up these players. They have made the plays. They make more plays in big games than the rest of the team. So if that's part of the Patriot way, that's what they do. In critical situations, they play those better than anyone else. And at some point, if I'm Lane, because I got to respect, there's a lot of intel that goes on in the NFL that's not public knowledge. He started letting you know about that. That's the first time we heard about the owner. If there was something between the Eagles owner and the Patriots owner, it's not the first time we've heard about there was maybe a conversation between Bill Belichick and Doug Peterson before the game that Lane is obviously seeing it as disrespectful. But it's May. You're Super Bowl champs. You got to stop talking about last season and start talking about your team. You got to start concentrating on what the Eagles need to do to defend Super Bowl 52. The Patriots aren't worried about the Eagles. They're not talking about you. And you shouldn't be talking about the Patriots. And from a respect standpoint, I heard that there, and you put that in there as a disqualifier. Oh, I respect them. Well, I ask you, Lane, if you respect the NFL, get on to the business of the NFL. You are the Super Bowl champs. You do not have to keep addressing the New England Patriots. You don't have to you can cut off the question. You control these interviews. Lane likes being part of the media. It's kind of new to him. He needs to understand that. Patriot questions right now, they're irrelevant. It's about me and my teammates, and if you want to ask any question about them, I'm willing to address those.
All right, let me just ask you real quick a follow-up on this, because when I heard Jeff Lurie allegedly said something, talked trash to Robert Kraft, and Bill Belichick allegedly talked trash to Doug Peterson, it felt to me like something that right before a Super Bowl or in the week leading up to it, a coach throws in as extra motivation, whether it's accurate or not. And their owner said this to our guy, and you won't believe what Belichick said to me. When I mentioned that to you before the show, you said that can't be the case, that you can't make up that type of lie, so to speak, just to motivate your players.
Yeah, players are smart enough. Players see through things, and players expect you to be honest with them. There's enough things going around the Super Bowl that they didn't have to create. Players don't need to be motivated in the biggest game of their life, especially when it's the Eagles going against the Patriots. The Eagles knew what they were up against.
And the Patriots, do they care? They don't. The Patriots, part of the Patriot way is carrying themselves on some semblance of a proverbial perch, if you will, that they don't listen. They don't need to be motivated by words. They don't clip headlines. They don't care who likes them or don't like them, because if they did, I don't think this would be the path that would have drawn them such success.
That's always the response from pro athletes. They don't care. They don't listen.
You think they care?
Well,
the Patriots?
I know this. I'm not guessing. I watch Tom versus Time. Tom's hearing what people are saying because he's saying stuff to contradict what people are saying. I know they're human. I know the players, even though Belichick would like to perform a certain way, the other players, I know a lot of the players play for their team. They got fun. The players hate the fact that Belichick gets all the credit. Like we never talk about New England, how good their players are. Oh, it's only Gronk, it's only Brady, and it's Belichick. Those are the only players that they have. The players there, they do care.
There was something else Lane Johnson said in this, though, that I do think is instructive and interesting for the 30 teams that aren't the Patriots or the Eagles, for any team that's going to play the Patriots. And he made the point that he felt like a lot of teams are beat before they, halfway beat, he put it, before they take the field against New England. That the Patriot mystique, the aura of Tom Brady, that it gets in their head and that they don't play their very best game. And Lane Johnson, his point was, man, I'm not going to play a single snap against Tom Brady. I'm focused on their defense. He said, I didn't think their defense was that great. He talked about the yards they were then able to accumulate on the defense. I do think that's noteworthy for other teams. And I also personally am rooting. I know people think I'm not an Eagles, that I'm against the Eagles because I picked against them last year, but I am rooting for the Eagles to have sustained success. Because this Lane Johnson stuff, even if you think it's now too far into the offseason, it's much more fun as a football fan than the Patriot way. It's much more interesting than we're focused on Cincinnati, we're focused on Baltimore, we're moving on to the next week. It is more fun to have some of the soap opera stuff, and if they can be successful despite it, or maybe not just despite it, but in part because of it, that could be good for the NFL.
As Denny Green would tell us, we're paid handsomely to play professional football. It's not high school. It is not college, and people expect a professional performance. It's about playing well. So when I'm not rooting for any team. I'm rooting for good football. I don't care how you do it. I don't care if the guys can be quote machines. I don't care if the guys can't say anything. However you can put a good football team together, and I know there's many different ways you can do it. But in the last 30 years in my association with the NFL, there's been no one more successful than the Patriot way. So I respect that because it's won out over time.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Coming up, can Aaron Rodgers play until he's 40? That seems to be a theme amongst NFL quarterbacks. That's next on First Things First. To the NBA lottery now. The Phoenix Suns were awarded the #1 overall pick in the NBA draft. They had, what, Nick, a 25% chance?
They had the best chance of any team, yep.
It'll be the first time the Suns pick first in their franchise history. All right, Nick Wright, who should the Suns take at #1 overall?
I understand there's going to be a lot of noise surrounding DeAndre Ayton. He played in their backyard. I get it. But given the draft capital they've spent on centers and power forwards in the last few years, and given the fact that I think the kid from Europe, Luka Doncic, is pro-ready right now, I think they should, and I think they will take the 19-year-old Luka Doncic.
Yeah, even though Luka Doncic might not be a point guard, he might be a tweener, maybe a two-guard projected in the NBA. I wouldn't take Ayton as a center because I don't believe he can be effective playing in the Western Conference. You have to realize the style of basketball. Right now, the Western Conference Finals, how would he play for Houston? How would he play for Golden State? Or how would he play against those teams? I don't believe it's an effective style to develop a big man like him in the Western Conference.
All right, let's move on to the playoffs. Rockets and Warriors, they face off in Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals tonight. Houston looking to even up the series after losing home court advantage in Game 1. Chris Carter, what's the key for the Rockets to win this game?
They got to be able to move the ball. They got to get into some type of motion offense early in the game to allow the other players. James Harden's got to be able to set the table for the other players so that they get some type of flow of the game before it gets crunch time. You don't want guys not to have a feel before you get into the fourth quarter.
Listen, you've got to do what you did against Steph Curry, but I would argue need to do it earlier as far as trying to get him involved in the pick and roll defensively, get him in foul trouble. They did that in the second half. They drew 5 fouls on him. They weren't doing that in the first half. And on offense, I agree with Chris entirely. You have to give your team more assist opportunities. I know they're an ISO-based team. They were an ISO-based team on steroids in Game 1, and that cost them the second half of that game.
All right, finally to the NFL now. Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers might be taking a page out of Tom Brady's playbook. Rodgers said his goal is to, quote, be indispensable to this organization into my 40s. CC, do you see Rodgers playing this long?
That's the thing. Everybody wants to play. I try to tell you and Nick all the time, oh, this guy should retire. Oh, he should walk away. And go do what? Aaron Rodgers, man, he's born to be the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. Why would he want to go do anything else? If the organization is going to support him, they're going to put players around him. If he's going to have a chance to win championships, why not? With technology, with the way that players eat now, with the facilities that they have, yes, players can play to an extended age. And I'm sure that he sees Tom Brady, he saw Peyton Manning, and I'm sure he sees Drew Brees. And I would say out of those 4 quarterbacks I mentioned, Aaron Rodgers is the best athlete. He's a better athlete than Drew Brees. He's a better athlete than Tom Brady, better athlete than Peyton Manning. And he takes care of himself. So why wouldn't he play as long as possible? It's always been my theory. They have to knock you out of the league. So Aaron Rodgers, he shouldn't be thinking. I like this message coming out of the locker room compared to what I heard from Ben Roethlisberger a couple years ago, right? This is a great game, and you need to play it as long as you can.
And we should keep in mind, while Aaron Rodgers is 34 years old, he doesn't have the hits on him of a 34-year-old quarterback that started from the first day he was in the league because of his time as the understudy under Brett Favre. This is great news.
And his injuries haven't been the type of injuries that would affect his overall longevity.
Right. It's collarbone, and it's stuff that you don't think, oh, this is something that's going to shave years off his career. But this is great news for football fans if Aaron Rodgers does want to do this, because while athletes today do have, because of technology and because of the increased training regimens, the ability to play longer, also because of the money and the ability to have lifetime financial security locked up at an earlier time in your playing career, they don't have as much of the financial incentive as maybe athletes in an earlier era. So I'm so happy to hear this from Aaron Rodgers. I've said for a long time, Aaron Rodgers at his best plays the position as well as anyone I've ever seen play it. For Aaron Rodgers to be considered as good as the all-time great quarterbacks, he's got to get to and win another Super Bowl or 2, so the longer he plays, the better chance he has at that. I've seen no deterioration in Aaron Rodgers' skills over the years. I've seen him get better almost year by year of his career. I think he's only 34, so he's talking about 6 more years, 7 more years, 8 more years. It's a long way down the road, but I'm delighted to hear it as a football fan.
Wouldn't you love to see him finish his career in a Packers uniform, too? We just don't see that many.
Yeah, I don't get caught up into that. I don't get caught up in the nostalgia.
I'm full-blown caught up in it.
Well, I can understand, like the Derek Jeter story.
No?
Things happen.
Of course.
People, you say the same thing about Peyton Manning. But he gave us 3 years in Denver that we wouldn't take that away. Things happen. Peyton Manning gets hurt. They end up getting the first pick. They draft Andrew Luck. So what, I'm supposed to wish for him to stay with the Colts? No, of course not. This is not We're not in an era where guys are going to play from one team their whole career.
That's why it's just so rare. That's why you want to see Tom Brady finish with the Patriots, and you kind of want to see Aaron Rodgers grew up in the Packers organization, finish up with the Packers. As a fan, no. Do you?
Well, listen, if I were a Packers fan, I certainly would.
Well,
I understand the idea that there are times where, like Akeem Olajuwon with the Toronto Raptors never felt right. But that was also because Akeem was so far removed from how good he was. But if we look at a lot of the Mount Rushmore caliber players in this league's history, Emmett didn't finish with the Cowboys. Jerry played on a bunch of teams after the Niners. Joe Montana played for my Kansas City Chiefs. He mentions Peyton Manning. Chris Carter. I understand Chris played for 2 teams initially, but Chris's final game was with the Miami Dolphins. There's a famous picture in your office that when you guys, the only 1,000-catch club, right? You, at the time, Tim Brown, yes. Jerry Rice. That was a Dolphins-Raiders game. Only Tim Brown was with the team you really associate him with. And so that's what fans, I'm a fan, but that's fans' selfishness and their attachment to the logo on the helmet, all right? Players want to play. So if you're a fan of the players, why would we rob a player of his career when he can't finish somewhere? Because extenuating circumstances happen for most of the players. But to your point, just quickly, Jenna, I do believe that Aaron Rodgers also would like to finish as a Packer. I think most of these guys would love to stay with their teams. It's very often the team. Peyton Manning didn't want to leave the Colts. The Colts said goodbye.
That's what I meant.
See you later.
I would, from the athlete standpoint. Now, I wouldn't want him to stick around as a backup. I obviously would want him to play. All I want to do is see him play.
Right.
I just
it would be great if the Packers and Rodgers stayed together.
Sure.
But I would never ask a guy, and I don't think you were, to retire a year early.
Of course not. If there was more football in him. No, of course. All right, let's get back to basketball now. The Celtics remain perfect at home this postseason after beating the Cavs again last night. Despite a 42-point triple-double out of LeBron James, the Celtics were unfazed. They outscored the Cavs 59-39 in the second half. They used a balanced attack to stay in the game. Oh, and also to win it. 23 points from Jaylen Brown, 18 out of Terry Rozier. So the Boston Celtics take a 2-0 lead in the best-of-7. Here's Al Horford on how the Celtics won this game.
We are trying to play the right way, trying to play hard, really just buying into what coaches telling us, and you just have a lot of guys that have a lot of fight in them.
Brad and his coaching staff always talk to us about being locked in the moment, and that was a big thing for us. So we're just trying to stay locked in and focus on each other and really decrease all the outside noise and distractions.
They did what they had to do, and that was protect home, and now it's our time to try to do that as well. So we have a few days, like I said, and we're gonna see what we made of on Saturday.
Do you notice that after every LeBron loss, the cap gets lower and lower until finally he's like, I'm not worried at all. Don't even look at me or ask questions. Nick, how did the Celtics win this game?
Spectacular team defense, unbelievable effort from start to finish, and an unwavering belief that I eventually will get my shots on offense, so I'm not going to force shots. And whether or not the shots are coming to me is not going to affect my effort defensively. And those three areas were the 3 areas the Cavs, to me, got Fs. Their team defense was pathetic. Their effort was abysmal. And if they weren't involved in the offense, they were not too interested in being involved in the defense. So for the areas where the Celtics were extraordinary, the Cavs were terrible.
Yep.
And that's how you overcome a 42-point triple-double from the best player in the league.
The Celtics, the best defense in the NBA throughout the season. How did they dominate? They played true to form. Their offense has struggled. Played better at home, not only in the playoffs, but during the regular season. But listening to Brad Stevens talk over the last week or so, he talks about now this team has more continuity. They had a lot of injuries, too. We talk about the Cavs and their lack of continuity. The Celtics had a lot of injuries. We know Gordon Hayward early, but throughout the season, and especially after the All-Star break, they are now starting to get their rotations down. The players are starting to get more comfortable in the role that Brad has them playing, and you can start to see this. The difference in this game was they were able to hang in there with the barrage that LeBron put on them early. The reason why? Jaylen Brown. he had an amazing first quarter. The second quarter, they have the ability that the Cavs don't have. Tatum took over it during the stretch there, 5 or 6 minutes, where he was on fire. The third quarter, Rozier took over. And in the fourth quarter, it mounts to Horford and their defense. They only give the Cavs 17 points. So that's how you have a dominant performance that we saw from the Celtics. And to me, I think the overall maturity of seeing LeBron and what he was doing in the first quarter, and then for them to finish that first quarter, to only be 2 possessions down, I thought that was a huge lift to this young basketball team.
And see, you mentioned before the show something that I hadn't seen, which was Brad Stevens before the game talking about limiting the Cavs in transition.
Yes.
He expressed to the team, we are confident in our half-court defense against these guys. We are confident that we can make them take difficult shots. So what did he want to limit them in?
He wants to make sure we get back on defense. Forget what we're doing on offense. He said, pass the ball. You get a shot, take your shot. I'm not concerned about the offense. Let's just make them play against our half-court defense. I like our chances. Let's play hard. Very, very simple. But Cleveland, they're an offensive team dominant. 29th in defense, one of the best teams we've seen in the NBA. If you take away that transition, those fast break points, they only got 16 fast break points in two games. So they've been able to do that.
So before the game in the preview show, there was a little video that we were able to see of the shoot-around or a practice, if you will. And it was so striking to me that Tatum, I guess, was out of position, and Al Horford came over and said, what you're going to want to do is this. You see how you do this? Actually do this. And then I think 2 other guys came over. Like, this is, you called them young. This is a team that's actually still learning how to play together and to teach the other guys. And to have a guy like that play on the same court as a guy like LeBron James, who could just put up a triple-double like it's 42 points like it's nothing, 21 in the first quarter. It's so impressive, and it speaks so much to what Brad Stevens is doing with this group of players.
And it speaks to their overwhelming their talent as basketball players and their minds. Because here's why I bring up their minds. And here's why it matters that Jaylen Brown went to Cal Berkeley when he had scholarship offers from maybe more prominent basketball schools because he was interested in the academics there. It matters that Jason Tatum was one of the few guys Duke says, listen, Duke can have almost anybody. They pick the smartest of the best high school recruits typically. Do you know how hard it is as a young player to play defense in this league? Even if you're a great defender in college, because it's not one-on-one defense. It is team defense. It is recognizing help the helper. It is recognizing when there was a moment last night, I forget which defensive player it was, I think it was Marcus Smart, where you had Jeff Green have the ball on the high wing. Marcus Smart is guarding Korver in the corner, right? Jeff Green has the ball. No one is near Jeff Green. Marcus Smart has the decision. Do I leave Korver, who doesn't have the ball, to go to the guy who has the ball? He said, no. If I do that, it's going to be a corner 3 for Kyle Korver. That's the best shot the Cavs have.
It was a semi-break in the third quarter. He was in between the players, but he made the right decision because they're going to stick to the three-point line and stick to the highest percentage shooter.
And that's just high IQ defense. Like, yes, Brad Stevens is coaching that. Those guys are going out there and executing it. They're the number 1 defense in the NBA all regular season, as CeCe mentioned. That's not make-believe. What they've been able to do at home is remarkable to me. But the defense has stuck with them all series, all playoffs, all year long. And you saw it last night. The Cavs were stuck in the mud in the half court, which Stevens said was their goal going into the game.
All right, take a break. Coming up, how come nobody wants Des Bryant? Next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. Former head coach Eric Mangini is back with us. Coach, nice to see you. True story. Yesterday afternoon, if you lived in New York, what happened around 4 or 5 o'clock?
It was I was literally grilling.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. By the time it was lit, it looked like the apocalypse.
I mean, it was black. We were under tornado watches. There was like a horrific thunderstorm that came through. And I swear I said to myself, I bet you Eric Mangini's on the show tomorrow. Right, if there is a storm.
I bring the thunder.
I've never seen anything like it.
We got a new nickname.
We got it.
Bring the thunder.
Bring the thunder.
Yeah, you can't be Chocolate Thunder. We already have one. We appreciate that, Coach.
But in many ways, you do resemble Chocolate Thunder. All right, that being said, let us talk about Des Bryant, the NFL's biggest free agent name without a team to call home. That after the Cowboys released him and then proceeded to tell the world how unproductive he is. He's been linked to a few teams, most recently when his former teammate Jason Witten said Des would be a good fit with the Packers, but it has been the case with other teams. Reportedly, the Packers are out on the wideout. Coach, would Dez actually have been a good fit in Green Bay?
Well, I think what Jason was getting at was he'd be a good fit with Aaron Rodgers. And he,
okay.
It sounded like he was saying he needs to go to a place with a quarterback that, like Aaron Rodgers, or someone with that dominant personality that can fit with Dez, or that Dez can respect and will fall more in line with. I think that a younger quarterback with a strong personality could struggle, and that was probably the case with Dak Prescott. So it didn't sound like it was about the actual scheme. It sounded like it was about the quarterback, is what Jason was getting at, and I think that would have worked.
What do you think?
In terms of him fitting with Aaron Rodgers? I think he'd be great in that system, in the sense that Aaron Rodgers can make anybody look great.
Right.
Whether or not Aaron wants to deal with any of the things that Dez brings with him, I'm not sure how strongly he feels about that.
If you didn't have a Hall of Fame veteran quarterback, would you be interested in Dez Bryant if you were the head coach of a team?
Well, it just depends on what Dez's attitude coming in is. He's looking for a one-year deal, a deal that he can hopefully springboard into something more significant. So those players are very motivated, and typically those players tend to be more coachable, and those players tend to be more productive. So there is an upside to bring someone in on a contract like that. Now, if it becomes too big of a management issue, or if you think that management issue is going to outweigh the potential of him hitting, then you move on.
Typically, I would be excited about a player that wants a one-year prove-it deal. Is the potential downside to that if you are on a one-year prove-it deal and you do have a history of a volatile personality, that if you're not getting targets, if you're not getting the stats, if you're not getting the ability to prove it, that actually could be a bad thing?
No, because the perfect thing about a one-year prove-it deal is typically it's not a lot of money. So if you don't like the guy and it's not working out, then you cut your losses, you move on, and you've got the leverage from that standpoint. And the player has the leverage if he performs well. Now he's got a chance to negotiate a much higher number.
Yeah, I'm glad Jason Witten, I'm glad he chimed in on this, because his first week as a broadcaster let me know, and I try to tell you this all the time, guys who play in the league, what they know is their division. They know their teammates. They don't know a lot about the rest of the league. So I understand you can campaign for your friends. I've been on TV a long, long time. So I know how that works. You throw out a couple names to try to get them to a couple places. But New Orleans don't want Dez Bryant. They have the personnel. They have Michael Thomas from Ohio State. He's a Pro Bowl receiver. He's an ex-receiver. The same thing that Dez Bryant does. So, yeah, of course Dez Bryant would look good with the veteran quarterback. So I understand him saying that. He says Green Bay because of Aaron Rodgers. But they got Devontae Adams. He's a pure ex-receiver. All right? They got Randall Cobb. He's only a slot receiver. And they have another wide receiver. His name's Jimmy Graham. He's not a tight end. He's a wide receiver. So where does Dez Bryant fit to the Green Bay Packers? He's not a fit. Well, by the way, they did draft a guy in the 4th round. 6'3" guy, ran a 4.6 in the combine from Missouri. He's an ex-receiver. They drafted another speed guy from UCF in the 5th round. Now, there ain't no room on the roster for Dez Bryant as far as Green Bay. So, Witten, I appreciate it. I'm glad you're in broadcasting now. Welcome to your first week, but he's making a huge mistake because his style of play does not fit the personnel for what these teams want.
Coach, how much of what teams are looking at with Dez Bryant is style, is play, is on-field production, and how much is the off-field stuff that they're seemingly factoring in? Because there's been very little interest except for the deal that the Ravens had offered him.
Well, yeah, you're going to look at style and where he fits in your scheme. And Cris brings up a good point. Jason Witten, when I looked at the comments, it doesn't make sense from a scheme perspective. It makes sense from a quarterback perspective, but you've got to figure out, okay, how does he potentially help us? How does he work with the other players in the room? How is he going to work with our quarterback? And then there's this cost-benefit analysis of, is the upside greater than the potential downside of what he can bring to the locker room?
See, you've pinpointed one team for Des all along as the best fit, the best need, the best opportunity, and that's San Francisco.
Yes.
The one thing San Francisco doesn't have is what Coach was talking about, a veteran, proven quarterback. They got a guy who makes the money like he's a veteran, proven quarterback, has the security of a veteran.
I don't think that's that important.
Okay, that's why I wanted to ask you.
No, I believe now playing with a younger quarterback like Dak, it's not that he's young. Dak has not mastered the passing game. So Dez has been very, very comfortable playing with Tony Romo and talking to Tony Romo at this year's Super Bowl and also hearing his comment. Tony Romo is a brilliant football player. So Dez's ability to ad-lib with Tony Romo, now where else can he get that? All right? He's not going to be a structured route runner. He's not going to beat you with the route tree. You're going to have to be able to add some things, and a lot of times that can only be done by a veteran quarterback. So I understand what Witten, why he's trying to target these types of teams.
See, I like him in Baltimore. I think that's probably the best fit for him. They went and they got Michael Crabtree and they got Willie Snead, but Willie Snead had a down year last year. Perriman, what did he have, 7 catches? There's an opportunity there.
Yeah, he's a bust. Snead's a slot receiver. They could use him in Crabtree.
And culturally, they've been pretty accepting of guys. Now, I'd love to see him in New England. Is he going to become Chad Johnson, or is he going to become, Randy Moss? That's like the truth serum for a guy in this type of position. Let's see what that would look like. Cleveland would be an interesting spot too, putting with the guys that they have there, and Todd Haley has a track record of working with guys that create some potential challenges, and he's always done a good job with that.
Yeah, but Jenna makes a good point, though, because people right now are wondering, man, why he's too good of a football player. Why isn't he playing somewhere? But I believe when you do all the intel on Dez Bryant, there are people with red flags. It's no different than the draft. It's no different than Coach. Coach will take you off the board. There are people in free agency that are not looking at Dez Bryant because they do not want to bring his personality and potentially some of the other things. At this point in your career, you can't be worrying about a veteran receiver who's almost 30, and he going to be late? Is he going to be on time? Is he going to be a good influence on my locker room, on my young guys? And the thing that hurts veteran receivers in the month of April and May is if you sign them, they take away all those offseason reps from those younger players. Green Bay drafted 3 receivers. If they bring Dez in, this whole offseason, they're trying to get Dez up to speed. So they're taking reps away from those young guys, which really hurts their overall development and growth.
If it's just about football, though, Coach, what's the ceiling for Dez Bryant? I mean, how much of what we've seen in the last couple of years could we possibly see production-wise?
Well, that I don't understand, because I don't know what type of learner he is. I don't know how quickly he's going to get into a system and be able to pick up the system. Can he really go from spot to spot? Could he play X? Could he play Z? Or is he just purely an X? Could he move around? The concern I have in San Francisco is there's so much shifting and motioning and multiple personnel groups and formations. Okay. That's my concern there, is can he do all those things? And Chris's point about the offseason reps going to the younger guys, that's what you want. But is Dez the type of learner that needs all those offseason reps to be a productive guy? The great thing about free agency in the NFL is you get the best information. You've got enough friends around the league that someone's going to tell you the truth on the guy.
But what you guys are describing, just sitting here listening to it. All right, there's 32 teams in the league. It seems like a lot, right? Okay, about half of them, though, like their receiving core. They either spent draft capital on young guys. They already have too much money allotted to it. They've got it in place. So now we're down to around 16 teams, right? There's, call 4 or 5 of them that just non-football stuff, just off the field stuff. Could he be late? What are the red flags? What are the stories that haven't made it to the media? They've taken him off board. Now we're down to 10 or 11 teams, right? And then there's another 4 or 5 teams like, can he master this offense? Can he do the shifting? Can he play multiple spots? So now we're down to 5, 6 teams, right? So all of a sudden, when you're at this stage in your career, when you're on 3 years of well below Pro Bowl level production, you have on the field red flags. You have off the field red flags. You also are evidently somewhat choosy about the type of contract you want. Those 32 teams become 2 or 3 teams awful quickly. And I think that's what we're seeing with Dez.
After 15 years in the league, more than half of those being in the Pro Bowl, my last year I had 3 teams calling me. St. Louis Rams, greatest show on. Mike Martz asked me, you want to play the slot? Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt outside. I believe we'll be unstoppable. Miami Dolphins, Rick Spielman knew me from Ohio State, and the Cleveland Browns wanted to bring me back to Ohio as kind of a consolation to my career. That's all I had. I had 3 teams. Great career. I had 3 teams that had some type of interest in me.
Listen, when Des does finally get a job, it's going to be a sad day here. Because what are we going to talk about? It's actually helping defeat us. Exactly. Exactly. Your second favorite topic. Coach, we'll see you a little bit later on in the show. Coming up, are the Cavaliers in danger of being swept? Not being dramatic. That's next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. Steven Jackson now joins the program. Steven, how's it going?
I'm always good to be here with you guys. I'm happy.
I love that.
I can't complain.
Love that.
Great to see you. Action Jack got a 3-hour workout in last night playing some ball.
Shout out to my boy Chauncey Billups, my Big Three teammate. We're getting ready for the Big Three.
Nice.
I forgot you and Chauncey on the same. That's going to be a tough team.
Ryan Hollins, Mike James.
Oh, I'm going to be at a bunch of those.
Yeah.
Man.
Me and Ron finna take it by storm.
Yeah, I supported you last year.
You always do. You always are my guy.
Let's do it.
All right. Steven, we all knew LeBron would come out big in Game 2 last night. We also all sort of knew his supporting cast might not. Guess what? We were right about both. LeBron with a 42-point triple-double. Only 3 Cavs scored in double figures. LeBron, Kyle Korver, and Kevin Love. The rest of his team, I don't know where they were, and I watched the game. The Celtics at home are unbeatable. They're now 9-0. They win this postseason. They win Game 2, 107-94. Here's LeBron after the game.
How will I digest it? I'm going to go home tonight and see my 3 kids, see my family, recalibrate, see my mom. I think I'll be fine. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. You know, you go out and when you lay everything on the line, you know, at the end of the day, you can live with that.
True that, but
In other words,
read between
I
the
did
lines.
my job.
Yep.
Don't ask me how I'm feeling. Ask everybody else in the locker room what they're going to do next game.
Read between
That's
the
basically what he's
lines.
saying. We all said it. We were all right. LeBron's going to come out and dominate. But the difference, besides him dominating, you see 2 different teams. You see a team that is unsure of their role in Cleveland. You've seen players that, like J.R. Smith, when LeBron misses him on a wide open pass, he starts pouting. A lot of guys on that team start pouting. You see guys on defense that's never played defense in their life that's asked to guard guys one-on-one that's not been able to, like guys like Kyle Korver. The Celtics, it's easy to see they're playing as a team. They're playing for each other. They're coached that way by the shots that they're getting. They, like you said, I heard you say that they're not worried about taking shots. Nobody is. They're just playing the game. They're going with the flow. It's easy to see that the Celtics are playing for each other and not the personal game. You can't see that with the Cavs.
I didn't watch the game with you last night, but I was thinking about you when I was watching in this regard. I would imagine there were some possessions defensively by the Cavs in the second half last night that made you angry.
Drove me crazy.
Why? I figured that was the case. Tell the audience why.
Well, it's certain possessions where you can't allow a guy to have Kyle Korver on the ISO and get 4 to 5 dribbles and expect him not to get scored on.
Yeah.
Like
Dip his shoulder on him twice.
The defense was terrible. You can't let Morris be at the top of the key against Tristan Thompson and take 3 and get all the way to the rack and get an animal with no help. Like the defense, it's been bad all year, so it's not a surprise to me. But last night it looked real bad.
What about JR? Now, I know how much pride you take. JR is kind of a guy you connect with. You say y'all kind of built from the same kind of stuff. How disappointed were you in him not being able to show up in this game? Because if JR shows up, it's going to be tied up 1-1.
Well, I'm highly disappointed because not only have I been publicly saying that he's the guy to make shots and he's a good friend of mine, it sucks to see that him not taking advantage of this moment. You know, you have a chance.
You only get so many of these.
And you have a chance to beat Robin to Batman. Nobody else is really stepping up. Kevin is playing well, but Kevin is not going to be enough to beat the Celtics. Kyle Korver had a great game, but you can't rely on that. I say it all the time. Kyle Korver is not going to beat you. He's going to get some open looks. He's not going to beat you. JR, other guys, they got to step up, but they're not finding that right now.
That's the part about JR really the last 2 seasons that has been the most disappointing to me, particularly this series. JR, with what he did, let's not forget, Game 7 of the NBA Finals, the beginning of the second half, he's the one at the third quarter scored 8 points, get the Cavs back in that basketball game. He sobbed at the post-game press conference with his dad in the room, talking about how he had felt he had made some decisions that made his family look bad, that had made him look bad. He had an opportunity to rewrite his NBA story to a degree. This is his last best chance to make an NBA Finals. This is George Hill's maybe only chance to make an NBA Finals. And for those guys to not take advantage of the moment. JR could have erased what was his worst professional regular season with a good NBA playoffs by being a poor man's Kyrie to LeBron's Batman. And to be 0 for 7 from the field last night, have the awful flagrant on Al Horford. It's because I also like JR. Like, you know him better than me. I know him a little bit. It's disappointing to see.
Yeah, and that was the story of the game. We'll talk about a lot of different things. I don't know if you saw this earlier, but we put up a graphic, the backcourt. I think you'll be astounded by the numbers, the lack of productivity by Cleveland's backcourt.
Yeah, I saw that.
Last night, 41-3 in a championship atmosphere, a game that you got to have. You have two veteran players that don't give Kevin Love and LeBron in support as far as George Hill and JR. And to me, that was the most disappointing thing in watching the game. These two players who you're in legacy type games. These are the type of games that change how people think about you. They to me, didn't seem to have the sense of urgency that I thought that it should be appropriate for that situation.
And, you know, it's a play when LeBron James was taking it out, and they ran an out-of-bounds play, and J.R. Smith came off wide open towards LeBron, and LeBron looked him off. And ever since that, J.R. was pouting the whole game. You go back to the game, you'll see when
great observation.
And he was pouting the whole game, and he never was able to get it back. He has to be able to play well, like, especially with me. We talked about it, how much I love the game in the past. It bothers me to watch the game like that, knowing that I want to be out there. I would love to go out there and give 110% and help LeBron, and see guys out there not getting the job done when LeBron is working so hard. It's hard to watch.
It's so frustrating to constantly talk. This has been the narrative throughout the whole season. LeBron needs a supporting cast. LeBron, they need to step up. Are they just not good enough, or did they not try last night? What was it, an effort thing, or they just don't have the skill set to do it? You have Tristan Thompson, J.R. Smith, George Hill combined for 11 points. How do you win a game like that?
Well, I said Tristan Thompson wasn't going to be the answer. I mean, how many turnovers did LeBron have trying to get him the ball on pick and roll?
First play of the game.
You know what I'm saying? And he just sometimes he's not there. You know, he's not locked in. He's probably thinking more about rebounding than actually being aggressive on offense. But you just see two different teams out there, Jenna. You see a team that, like I said, that's playing for each other, that's hungry, that's all on the same page, that's paying attention to detail. I guarantee you, in the meetings before games and on practice days, everybody's in there quiet, paying attention. You might have, the way it looks like guys on Cleveland locker room, some on the phone, some paying attention to the TV, some
there couldn't be a bigger dichotomy between the two teams.
Right.
And just visually how they play, how they look on the court. The Celtics defense moves as a solitary unit. They move as one, like a shifting shape. The Cavs defense, it's 5 guys who it honestly at times looked like it's like the open gym.
It's not team defense. It's not team defense.
Who's next 5? You. All right, match him. You don't know how to talk to each other. That's why it looks so. And effort-wise, in the second half, in the fourth quarter in particular, the Cavs had gotten within, when LeBron came back, it was 11 when LeBron came back in the game. They'd gotten within 3 possessions down. And there were back-to-back possessions. The Cavs got to stop. And they give up an offensive rebound, score. Give up an offensive rebound, score. There's no coming back from that.
Two things. One, we shouldn't be surprised. The Celtics, during the course of the season, #1 in defense. That showed in the playoffs. Cavs, 29th in defense. But the reason why we have some sense of hope, because this is the way they were last year. And we just thought, they're going to get to the playoffs, they're going to turn it on. But the guy they're missing, don't nobody want to say it.
Kyrie.
He's over in street clothes. If they had Kyrie, they can play bad defense. Because LeBron, in the time that he takes a little bit of a respite, you got Kyrie cooking it up and stirring it up. They miss Kyrie. And the trades that they made to try to replace his overall productivity has been a colossal failure. That's why they're down 0-2.
And at the end of this, and at the end of the season, at the end of the playoffs, when you come to East Conference Finals, West Conference Finals, team defense wins games.
I'm Jenna Wolfe, and thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Make sure to subscribe and tell your friends, family, and coworkers about the podcast, which, by the way, is available on iTunes and all your favorite podcast apps. You can catch a fresh new episode every Monday through Friday on FS1, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern, 3:30 a.m. Pacific. So long, everyone.